Okay, welcome to the Bobby Car History Revision channel on YouTube. You can access this through the Mac at MJM1 channel, which is specifically for you and the revision that the history department creates. All you need to do is go to the top of YouTube and type in Mac at MJM1. That's MACCA MJM1. What that will do is give you access to all the videos and clips that are created by the history department. What we're going to do today is concentrate on section B of paper 1, which is a depth study of the American West, which is 1840 to 1895. I've done this purely and simply as a starting point because it was the topic that we looked at the longest amount of time ago. However, I do need to say that as a class I think you have a fantastic knowledge of the American West history, and your teacher must have been absolutely fantastic, because I know that from reading some of your exams you've got a really good base and foundation knowledge of the American West. Going to look specifically today at the 2009 paper, and we're going to discuss question 2B, which centres around the Mormons. As you can see, there are 4 levels and 7 marks available, so if this question is done well, it can really make the difference between grades. If we look at the marking scheme that I've got here, you can see the 4 levels down the left hand side. I'll briefly go over those levels and talk to you about the marks that each level incurs. At level 1, which we don't need to be thinking about because everyone in this class will get better, but a level 1 is just a general assertion. The question is, explain why the Mormons decided to go west in the 1840s. For a level 1, this is an example. They decided to go west because they thought it was the best thing for them. They were in big trouble where they were. You can see by that question it's very general, doesn't really give any of your own knowledge, and definitely doesn't explain any of the reasons. A level 2 is slightly better. You can get between 2 and 4 marks for level 2, and what it does is identify specific contextual knowledge. So that really means knowledge about the Mormons, but it doesn't give an explanation. This is a trap that many students will fall into. Just because you know a lot about the Mormons doesn't mean that you've answered the question. Examples that you can include are Mormon banks, attack on properties, they were driven out of Missouri and Nauvoo, unpopularity of polygamy, Smith planning to run for president, Smith being killed, the attractions of Salt Lake City, and so on and so forth. There's many different reasons why the Mormons did decide to go west, and the Mormons had a lot of problems, which we'll go into. You're not going to get more than 4 marks if you just list those problems. What you have to do is explain them. A level 3 is between 3 and 5 marks. This is what we need to be aiming for at the very least. What you will do here is take one specific reason and explain it in quite a lot of detail. I'll give you an example of this. The Mormons decided to go west because they had become very unpopular in the East. They had set up a successful town at Nauvoo, but Smith made the mistake of deciding to allow polygamy. He said God had told him that it was alright, but this was very unpopular with other people there. They thought it was against Christian teachings and were worried it would lead to a big increase in the Mormon population. So the Mormons became very unpopular there and needed somewhere else to live. Now if you look at that question and you dissect it, really what it's asking you to do is explain why they went west. What the person has done there is given one really good point about the fact that they were driven out of towns, and then she's touched on a few other points, but she hasn't explained them, or he hasn't explained them. We get a little bit about polygamy, and we get a little bit about the population, but there is no reference made to how that links into the reason they went west. To get level 4, which I think really is in touching distance for all of you, and you should all really be going for that and striving for it. You can have 6 marks for one reason explained and another one identified, but you get 7 marks for 2 reasons identified and explained. So really, to get 7 marks in this question, all you have to do is pick 2 reasons why the Mormons decided to go west and explain them. And I don't think that's that difficult. So let's have a look then of a brief recap of the Mormons. Joseph Smith started the Mormon movement in about 1820 in New York, and by the end of the 1830s it was very popular, but mobs had attacked his house and the Mormon followers also and he was told in a prayer, apparently, they had to go to a village in Ohio called Kirtland. Kirtland was a massive success, and the Mormons grew in numbers and they grew from strength to strength. The settlement had a mill, a store and a bank. And this was really down to the hard work of the Mormons and the fact that they were very well organised. However, the economic crisis meant that the bank collapsed, and many of the non-Mormon inhabitants of Kirtland had put the money in the bank, and them, just as well as the Mormons, lost the money. This was really the tip of the iceberg, and they were chased out of Kirtland. They fled to Missouri and they arrived in 1837. Missouri was really the only place that the Mormons really failed. This is due to the reputation that preceded them. There was a lot of scared people in Missouri already with preconceived notions of what the Mormons were like. People were scared of taking them in and helping them, and in under 2 years, 200 Mormons turned into 1,200. So you can imagine what sort of an impact that had on the area. The governor of Missouri declared all Mormons public enemies, and they were driven out of the state. Smith was also imprisoned, but later released. What you've got to remember also about Missouri is that it was a very lively town, and don't forget that the Mormons had no drinking, no gambling and no smoking, so they found it quite hard to fit into Missouri. The next place they went to and settled in was Nauvoo. They arrived in 1839 and stayed until 1846, so we can see that they enjoyed quite a lot of prosperity here. It was very, very successful and was described by some white Americans as the best built city in the West. It had a giant temple in the centre, which was a real big focal point on a hill. Nauvoo was the utopia that the Mormons had always dreamed of. They had a small army and they were left alone to govern themselves. The problems with Nauvoo and the problems that Smith faced were really all entirely of his own doing. Smith was denounced as a false prophet for telling his followers that God had said it was okay to have more than one wife. He said that it's a time when it was widely acknowledged and known that he already had more than one wife, and his bodyguard actually had 5. He also made himself a hate figure by planning to run for President of America, and it culminated in being shot by a mob on June the 27th of 1845. Enter at this stage Brigham Young and the decision to go west. He was convinced that the Mormons would not be left in peace in the east. Salt Lake City was picked as a good site and had the added bonus of being under Mexican rule. 16,000 Mormons set off with him and made the long and very dangerous journey west to Salt Lake City. There's quite a few points that we've touched on in those few notes, and I think that really if we go back to the question, explain why the Mormons decided to go west, it actually seems quite easy. All you've got to do is pick 2 of those reasons and explain them in depth why that meant that they wanted to go west. And if you do that, you get 7 marks. Okay?